Scott, thank you for being here. Did the Bears just draft the next Ray Guy? What do we do? What just happened in Chicago here, Scott? How do you feel about this pick for the Bears in the 4th round?
It's a perfect pick for that position. I mean, everybody's going 4th round, man. That's awful rich for a punter. But when you're talking about a guy the last 3 years who had 109 punts inside the 20-yard line, you're talking about a guy who set the record and his leg didn't fall off with in punting yardage that had been around since 1938. One guy that I thought in the last, had 4 games that I thought he was instrumental in Iowa winning over the last 3 years, including a couple of top 10 showdowns in 2021. 2022, he had 2 punts inside the 10-yard line that led to safeties in a 7-3 win, which also speaks to Iowa's offense. And then a guy who set the Big Ten record all time for average yards. And you're going to love this guy. He's everything you want as far as as a player, as an interview. He's fun. He's energetic. He's got swagger. He's a guy's guy. He's like Pat McAfee, just from Australia.
Well, and that's what I wanted to ask. When anybody brings up a kicker from Australia, I think of the kicker from The Replacements who would be smoking a heater while he was but that's one of the better comedy NFL or football movies I've ever seen. But that's what I kind of am curious about, is his journey from Australia to Iowa and now here to Chicago to play in the NFL.
Yeah, it's been pretty interesting. I mean, he grew up and he never even saw a football game until he arrived at Iowa. And that was back when he was, that was during the COVID year. So there were no fans there. So he made some football mistakes that he's since learned from, like if the ball hits the ground, you can't kick it, that type of thing. But I mean, he didn't even really start punting or learning how to punt until he got to his 20s, and he went to the academy in Melbourne and eventually worked his way to Iowa at age 22 in 2020, and had to quarantine twice actually before he got here during the COVID year. Quarantined in Sydney, and then had to quarantine in Iowa City. And you'd think somebody that old from Australia, just not really, how could he relate? Well, he related to everybody. And here, other than some of the women's basketball shirts, the fastest growing shirt was punting is winning. And it was a black and gold shirt and had an outline of Australia. And that's true. I mean, they had a great defense and the worst offense you've ever seen. And the punter was a weapon. And he was just tremendous in all 4 years.
All right. So, Scott, can he, let's say somebody breaks one. Have you ever seen him lay the wood? Could he stop a would-be returner? The last line of defense. Here comes Tory Taylor. I mean, everything you just named. I feel like this guy could smack someone. Has he ever done it?
He would, but not somebody like Devin Hester. He's not that fast. I mean, he's legit 6'4", 230. And I mean, he's pretty thick too. So if he could get within a phone booth, sure, I think he could. And he was a holder as well. But no, I mean, he's like most punters, man. I mean, if you got a good returner, you're dead. But I think if he got a chance on the sideline, he'd be able to take a whack at somebody.
I mean, from this, I'm texting some people who are deep in the Iowa world. Game-changing ability is what I'm getting back. Hawks weaponized him. Personally responsible for at least 2 to 3 wins. And then similar to what Hoge's been saying about Scheffler, like a pro golfer wields a pitching wedge. Yeah, I take it you agree with all of that?
Absolutely. I've seen him so many times in games and, of course, in practices and stuff, just be able to, hit a 50-yard punt and it just dies, or it bounces back, or it moves to the sideline and out of bounds. It's just amazing what he's been able to do all those years. And then, again, Iowa's played that to their offense. There's been a lot of times where you kind of, oh man, another plus 50 punt. I mean, his average would be a lot better if they actually didn't punt in some of those situations, because they'd punt from the 42 and he knock it out at the 4-yard line, and your net's 38. I mean, it's not really, it kind of stunk for him, but at the same time, he was just everything he did. I mean, and he's punted in all kinds of weather. So it's not like he's coming from Australia to Chicago and going on the lakefront there and going to screw up. I mean, he's punted 50-mile-an-hour winds at Wisconsin and Purdue, below zero wind chills at Minnesota outdoors. Iowa's not exactly been fun place to play in November. So he'll do whatever you need in whatever weather.
That was definitely going to be my next question, was just conditional weather kicking, because obviously we all know here in Chicago, that's what you got. That's what you're up against. And it's broken some kickers and it's made some legendary kickers, whether they're field goal kickers or, starting the game with kickoffs or punters. We've had some great ones and we've had some ones that can't handle it as well. We'll leave some of the names out to avoid some emotional scars for Bears fans. So you're saying he can handle the inclement weather, the high winds, because how many punts, you started out by saying how many punts inside the 20 that he
7,
had in his career?
Yeah, he's got, I think it's 109 the last 3 years. And,
wow.
And last year he had 23 inside the 13-yard line. So,
wow.
That's just, he's very, he is like a golfer. He can park it just about anywhere you need him to go. And, the way the Bears played defense late in the year once Montez Sweat got in there, he will be a weapon. I always said that he's worth at least 3 first downs per game for your defense because of the way he punts. And it's not just average, it's just placement.
A weapon. That's the consistent phrase. Adam said it. I heard Rich Eisen right when the pick went down on NFL Network. He said it a few times. A weapon. For us as Bears fans, we're so elated still riding this emotional high from the first night to get to this point. We're just trying to put a bow on this draft, and then to somehow come away with a special teams player who's consistently being called a weapon. I'm just blown away. I'm excited to see him play.
2024, the year the Bears drafted punter Tory Taylor. Nobody's going to even remember Caleb Williams. By the way, they do have Caleb Williams here, Scott. The plan is to not punt the football, but that's okay. We can debate that later. You look like you got something right on the tip of your tongue, Scott. What do you want to get out there?
I just want to say that when you draft somebody like Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze and you have the offense that's cooking now, it takes less pressure off them and your offensive coordinator, because if it's 4th and 4 at the 40, or even if you want to punt and you want to on 3rd and 10 and you want to go for something rather than safe, you can go for a home run because you've got a punter now that can help your defense. You're not just putting them in a disadvantaged situation. So I really like the way this will work complementary wise for the Bears offense, defense, and now special teams.
Scott, great for taking time for us today, jumping in here. We got to ask you before you go. You were Nicholas Moriano's professor at the University of Iowa. You're the reason that Nick has made it this far in life.
I think we had some really good conversations back in 2017, and a lot of them were draft related. I think we talked about it every single day when he would come in, and I think we even had one of our major exams was doing a mock draft, and Nick, of course, aced it, and I think back then they were the Bears brothers or something like that, and so he was a tremendous student and now a tremendous journalist.
What was the class? Where do you get to go to school? How come I didn't take that when I was in Iowa, where you could do mock drafts? That's amazing.
Yeah, it was a sports writing class, and I was an adjunct professor. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Well, he's a tremendous teammate. He's over at Hallis Hall right now, working hard and lines you up with us to give some good insight here on a Saturday afternoon. So we certainly appreciate you coming in on short notice. This is just a fun time right now to be a Bears fan. So, we're hyping up punters. So, it's kind of reached a different echelon of positivity, which we're not always used to here in Chicago, at least with our football team.
Yeah, I get it. I watch the Bears too quite frequently. So I just think there's something good going there, and Tory's going to be part of it.
Scott, thanks so much for jumping on. We appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for having me on.
We all silly like the mayor.